Let's go to the flip side, which is called the assertive continuum. So now we're going to connect this to what we did with the drama triangle a little bit, but this is to make us aware that there are sort of three general categories of human behavior when you talk about it in the context of assertiveness. And one is the first column, which is being non-assertive or submissive. That would be in the drama triangle what? That would be the victim. If you jump over to the right column, you have aggressive. That would be in the drama triangle the persecutor, but also, surprisingly, would also be the rescuer. Okay, which you could think of the rescuer as soft aggressive and the persecutor as hard aggressive. But in the middle you have assertive. Now before we start going through the distinctions between these three, the goal would be that you could do all three. So I mean, I know you can. I don't want to take away from you anything you presently know how to do. There are situations where that might be the best option for you to get the impact that you want. But to be in an ongoing, healthy relationship, it would be helpful if both people had the ability to be assertive most of the time. All right? That doesn't mean they wouldn't go into the others, but they wouldn't go there very often. Now, as we go through these, I'm thinking you will think of people who live primarily in one category or another. And if you think of the big people you watched as a little person growing up, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to identify where each of them spent a lot of time. And consequently, as a kid, you may have either learned how to do that very well, or you learned to really not like it because of the negative impact it had on you. So let's start with number one. When you're being submissive or non-assertive, you're under-responsible, you don't speak for anyone. You don't express your awareness. Have you ever known anybody who doesn't use I statements? Like, I think, I want, I know, I feel. Instead they go, well, you know, I suppose some people might want to like it like that. So what did that tell you about them? Nothing, right? So they don't speak for themselves. Aggressive people on the other side, they speak for others. They use words like you, we, and everybody. Everybody knows. Everybody ought to. Okay. So they express their awareness at the expense of others. In other words, they try to impose their experience or their awareness on other people. But if you're assertive, you speak for yourself, you do a lot of I statements, you express your awareness, but you also want to fully hear the other person's awareness. Number two, when you're being submissive, you're dependent. You're pretending you don't have all of those rights that we talked about. When you're being aggressive, you're being counter-dependent or other-dependent, where you think your rights are more important than everybody else's rights. So lots of people out there running around claiming their rights, but they not only want to claim their rights, they want to impose theirs on you. That's being aggressive. Assertive people are independent and interdependent. In other words, they believe there's mutual rights. It's my rights, but it's also yours. So they do the responsibility-right balance in a good way. Number three, when you're submissive, you're one down, you get into the victim role. When you're persecutor, you're one up on other people. That's the persecutor role. So persecutors, again, are into judgment and blame and attacking. I mean, they'll do whatever they need to do to get their way. Victims don't ever say what their way is because they're afraid if they stand up for what they want, then somebody won't like them or whatever. Assertive people are equal and mutual. I want to find a way where both of our needs are met. So it's not my way or your way, it's our way. Very different. Number four, non-assertive people become martyrs because they put other people first. They let other people win. It's whatever the other person wants. It's like, I don't matter. Aggressive people, it's me first, I win. I'll do whatever it takes, my way or the highway. These are the dogmatic people. They just can't. Have you ever known somebody that it doesn't matter what you're talking about, they have to be right? And that's an aggressive person. Now, what we know about aggressive people, by the way, is that they have a tremendous amount of deep-seated insecurity that they don't know how to talk about. And they cover it up with this aggressive exterior. Okay, assertive people, though, are cooperative and sharing, and they find both win solutions. Number five, When you're being non-assertive, you're trying to please other people so they'll like you. When you're aggressive, you're pleasing yourself, so you try to dominate and control others. But when you're assertive, you please yourself and the other person, so we get to mutuality. 6, because I don't express my feelings when I'm being non-assertive, I have to internalize them. We know that that leads to psychosomatic illness, repressed feelings. Aggressive people, they only care about their own feelings, and they take their feelings out on other people. So there's a lot of aggressive people who end up in anger management workshops, all right? Because they're so used to taking whatever's not working in their life out on whoever's around them. Assertive people communicate their feelings openly and honestly, and they also listen to the other person's feelings. 7, if you're non-assertive, you don't want to make any choices, you don't want to make any decisions. So you don't tell people what you want. You're out of touch with that dimension of your awareness. If you're aggressive, you impose your choices and decisions on others. You attempt to control others. It's the only way you know how to feel safe. But assertive people, they make their choices and their decisions, and they expect other people to do the same. So they don't make choices and decisions for other people. Okay, number 8. If you're non-assertive, you're going to have a negative self-esteem. A lot of self-doubt, a lot of fear. You're going to feel powerless and helpless a lot. If you're aggressive, you're going to have a false positive self-esteem because you're overcompensating for your insecurity by trying to control everything and by trying to be in charge of other people's awareness. If you're assertive, you have a positive self-esteem, you have a lot of self-confidence. Number 9, submissive people don't think they have any rights, or other people's rights comes first. Aggressive people, my rights over your rights, but assertive people, my rights, your rights equally. If you're being submissive, you're weak, hesitant, tense, inhibited, you're dependent. If you're aggressive, you're loud, demanding, judgmental, controlling. But if you're assertive, you're calm, firm, direct, relaxed, good eye contact, listen, and so forth. So you get the flavor, right? Now we're going to be playing with this in a minute to see whether you can identify somebody's behavior as either being non-assertive, assertive, or aggressive. But before we do that, I want to touch on what the gifts and limitations are of each approach, because there's payoffs and there's prices. So let's look at those. In the non-assertive category, what is the payoff? You don't get into conflicts. Why? Because you just never fight. You let the other person have their way. So other people supposedly like you, but you're starting to lose yourself. You're not responsible. You're never to blame, because why? You never did anything. You never made any decisions. You never made any choices. There was nothing to criticize. Doesn't mean that the aggressive person won't criticize you anyway. They'll criticize you for whatever. Okay, now what are the prices? You have to repress your feelings, so they build up. That's physically unhealthy. Others direct your life. So non-assertive people have what I would call an unlived life, because they put everybody else's agenda ahead of their own. And you see this sometimes with people who, they get to like age 40 and they get divorced. They've raised 4 or 5 kids, but the truth of the matter was mom raised the kids. I don't know, dad was out doing whatever. And all of a sudden, the woman realizes that she doesn't know herself. And she has lost her life, sort of taking, and now all of a sudden you see lots of people going back to college at age 40, 45. And they're excited. They usually are the best students in the room, by the way. They're just so liberated to be there, finally living their own life without the demands that have been on them. Okay. Misunderstandings and manipulations are part of your relationships because you don't talk about anything openly, honestly, and directly. Let's go over to the aggressive side. The aggressive person feels like they have to win conflicts. So there's a lot of pressure if you're aggressive, because you think you're no good if you don't win. So you're fighting all the time for stupid stuff that it doesn't matter one way or another about whether you're right or whether you win, and that becomes your life. You're trying to protect yourself, so you do blame, lying, whatever it takes. And you try to feel in charge of other people because that's the only way you know how to be important. What's the price you pay? Well, you can only feel good if you can find some poor sucker who's willing to be your victim, who's willing to be submissive in the face of your aggressiveness. And aggressive people, if they meet an assertive person, what do you think happens? They can't stand to be around you because you don't give in to them. And it's weird because they don't know what to do, because you're totally treating them with respect, but you're not accepting what they're throwing at you. Alienation, and you can't trust others. If you try to control other people and you always try to put people down, well, you better watch your back, because there are a lot of people who will come back and get you one way or another. So these people have a difficult time in life because they don't have any trusting relationships. They devalue themselves. They feel guilty sometimes, but they don't know themselves because they're so busy trying to control everything else, they don't have any time to reflect on who they are either. Let's look at the payoffs for being assertive. You use conflicts as resources to grow. You learn how to find win-win solutions, which we'll do next week. No, I think we'll do it Thursday. You like, know, and value yourself. You have a self-directed life. But the price you pay is you have to have the courage to express your feelings as they occur. You live in the present. That can be scary. You deal with conflicts directly. That can be scary. And you're vulnerable because you're open and honest and direct about what you want and what you feel. So sometimes that's hard to do, and sometimes people aren't prepared for that because a lot of people grew up learning not to do that. Okay, so now at the bottom, we all know how to do all three kinds of behavior, although we may tend to a specific style in certain situations or with certain people. So there are people who can be pretty assertive with their friends, but when they get to an authority figure, all of a sudden they fold and they become very submissive. Now sometimes that's a good strategy depending on whether or not your authority figure needs to be in charge. Each style is effective and appropriate in some contexts, but the goal is to have choice of when you use each style to get the outcome you want. The assertive style is the most effective and appropriate in most situations. It's necessary for positive and intimate interpersonal relationships. So the thing that's most lacking for most people is actually learning how to be assertive, even in the relationships that they say they care the most about. Are there situations where being submissive is going to get you what you want? Let's think about that for a second. Can you think of a situation where being submissive will get you what you want? Let me give you a couple examples, and it might trigger your thinking. So I don't know, tonight on the way home, you do see the red flashing lights in your rear view mirror, and you get pulled over. This would be a really good time not to go aggressive. All right? And there are people who go aggressive, and they didn't not only get a ticket, but they get a few other charges. This would be a good time to go, yes ma'am, yes sir, whatever, right? And be a little bit submissive. Your first day on a new job, and for whatever reason, the boss that day is having a really bad day. There's lots of problems in his life outside of work that nobody knows anything about, but he's totally stressed out. And on that day, he comes at you very aggressively and starts, you know, that would be a good time, your first day on a new job, don't you think, to be submissive a little bit? Till you get the lay of the land, you figure out what you can do or whatever. Okay, those would be two examples. Any other places where it would be good to be submissive because it's going to get you what you want? When somebody has all of the power, then, and you know that by you being assertive or aggressive, it's going to make them try to be more powerful, why would you go there? Here's another good time to be submissive. Have you ever tried to reason with a drunk? So this drunk, for some reason, thinks you look like somebody he doesn't like and wants to fight with you. Right? And you're going, what's the matter with this yahoo? All right? I would say that's a good time to just walk away. Being submissive, right? Let somebody else take that on. Now, let's be aggressive. Can you think of a time and a place where it would be really, really good to be able to be aggressive?
When your kid's going to touch the stove.
Very good. Don't touch it, that's hot. Or your dog even, or whatever. Can you be aggressive? And it's needed. So emergency situations, people go aggressive quite often, and it's important.
Buying a new vehicle.
Sometimes with a really pushy salesperson who's very aggressive, and you try being assertive and it doesn't work. This happened to me once too. This was really fun because I was playing, but they didn't know it. I was about to buy a new car, and I knew what I should pay for it, and I'd really done my homework and so on and so forth. And I think I was like $100 away from my price. And I'm dealing with this salesperson, and every time I say, no, this is what it's got to be, then he would say, well, I have to go back and talk to my manager. He'd be gone for 20 minutes. So what they're trying to do is make you get impatient and give in. And so finally he comes down and he sits down, and I said, if you get up and go back and talk to your management one more time, I'm walking out of here. He did, I did. That was the end of it, right? I bought the car someplace else for what I wanted to pay. They could have sold the car if they would have given up $100. They didn't want to do it. I get stubborn sometimes, but I got aggressive, right? But that was the best way to take care of myself. So salespeople, some of them think that the best way to be a good salesperson is to be aggressive, and I'm guessing that with submissive people it works pretty well. But with assertive people, they probably lose a lot of sales that they could otherwise have. Okay? Any other place where it'd be good to be aggressive? I often say to women that as a woman, in the world we live in, where there is a lot of violence against women, you should think of what it would sound like if every cell in your body screamed out loud, no. What would that sound be like? And I'm thinking that would be a terrifying sound. And I think every woman needs to be able to make it. So I'll give you an example. In New York City, there are weirdos in New York. And one of the weirdo types are the people that ride the subways during rush hour, because in the rush hour, the cars are jam-packed full. And these weirdos try to get close to an attractive woman so that they can be rubbing their body against the attractive woman, right? Okay, so now I was on a subway once, and this woman really handled this well. So this weirdo's coming up, and he's getting in position, so they can rub against her. And she yells out, and this is over all the noise of the subway. It's really noisy. Everybody in the car heard it. And she describes the guy with the hat he's wearing, and then she says, "Get your body away from mine," blah, blah, blah. And so now you got all these guys on the subway who are dying to be a hero, and they're all moving towards this guy with the hat, because they're going to protect this woman. So there was a good place for the woman to be able to be aggressive, to take care of herself, right? So you get the idea.